All right, let's talk about something pretty wild. A piece of software that's basically a crystal ball for your business. It's called Arena, and it lets you build a digital copy of, well, almost any process you can think of, from a tiny coffee shop all the way up to a massive global supply chain. The goal? To see the future before it ever happens. I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could see the impact of, say, adding a brand new machine, or completely changing your store's layout, or even hiring more staff, but before you spend a single dime? That's the whole point. That's the problem Arena solves. It just takes all the guesswork and the huge costs out of making those big, scary operational changes. So, how in the world does it actually pull this off? Well, the magic here is something called simulation. You're basically building what they call a digital twin of your entire operation. You could almost think of it like a super detailed video game for your business, one where you can just hit fast forward and see exactly what's going to happen weeks or even months down the line. Okay, so to put a more official name on it, this is called simulation modeling. All it really means is you're creating a virtual copy of a real system, right? With all its rules, all its variables, the whole shebang. And this becomes your own safe digital sandbox, a place where you can experiment and break things all you want without any real-world consequences. And the whole process, it really just breaks down into 4 simple steps. First, you build the model of whatever it is you're studying, usually with these easy drag and drop blocks. Second, you run a bunch of different what-if scenarios. What if our demand suddenly doubles? What if a key machine breaks down? Third, the software just spits out all these incredibly detailed reports. And finally, you take all that data and you make a smart, informed decision. Simple as that. Now, I know this might sound kind of complex, but trust me, the actual building blocks are incredibly simple. So to make this crystal clear, let's just apply this whole idea to something we all get: running a super busy coffee shop. Okay, so in pretty much any simulation, you've got 2 main players. First, you have what are called entities. These are the things that are actually flowing through your system. In our coffee shop, that's easy. It's the customers. Then you have resources. These are the things that the entities use to get stuff done. So that would be our baristas and our coffee machines. The key thing to remember is this: entities flow and resources are stationary. They get used, but they don't move. So picture this: a customer, that's our entity, walks in the door. The model shows them seizing a resource, in this case, the barista. Then there's a delay. That's the time it takes to order, pay, and make the coffee. And once the transaction's done, the barista is released to go help the next person in line. Seize, delay, release. That right there is the fundamental logic for, well, almost any process you can possibly imagine. But we all know real life is messy. It's not some perfect, predictable assembly line, right? So what happens when it's high noon, you've got a line out the door, and your only barista is scheduled for a 1-hour lunch break? This is where a tool like Arena starts to get really powerful. Because this is where you can actually program the rules for that break. For example, with the wait rule, the barista finishes with their current customer, then takes their full hour. Or you could use preempt, where they just drop everything the second the clock strikes 12, leaving the customer hanging. Or maybe ignore, where they finish up, but then have to take a shorter break to catch up. The point is, you can model the exact policies of your real-life workplace. And you can go even deeper. You can start modeling totally random events. I mean, a coffee machine doesn't break down on a perfect schedule, does it? So you can tell the software, hey, this machine fails randomly every 5 hours on average. Or maybe it has a chance to fail after every 100 cups of coffee it makes. This lets you simulate the unpredictable chaos of the real world, so you can truly see how your system holds up when things go wrong. Okay, so we get it for a coffee shop, right? Simple enough. Now let's just zoom out and scale that whole concept way, way up. Because that same simple logic, entities, resources, seize, delay, release, it's the exact same logic used to model massive, incredibly complex industries. Take manufacturing. Here, the entities aren't customers. They're the raw materials that are becoming a product. Think about pieces of wood flowing through a line to become furniture, or meat becoming a burger patty. Companies use this to model their entire production lines to find those frustrating bottlenecks, test the real impact of adding one new machine, and make sure they have just the right amount of inventory on hand. Or look at healthcare. The entity is a patient. The resources, well, those are the doctors, the nurses, the hospital beds, the operating rooms. Hospitals use this stuff to model patient flow, from the moment they're admitted to the moment they're discharged, all to figure out how to cut down on those awful ER wait times and optimize staffing schedules for things like surgeries. And the scale can get absolutely massive. When you get to logistics and supply chains, companies can model their entire global network. They can test completely different distribution strategies or simulate what happens if a major port shuts down or a shipping lane gets disrupted. It helps them build systems that are just way more resilient to shocks. And even in retail, they bring it right back to the customer. It's used to model how shoppers, or entities again, move through a physical store. So retailers can test a brand new layout to see if it improves customer flow or figure out exactly how many cashiers they're going to need for that crazy busy Saturday afternoon, all before they move a single shelf or hire a single person. All right, so we've seen the what and the how, but let's get to the real heart of it, right? The so what. Why does any of this actually matter for a business? Well, first and foremost, it completely replaces guesswork with hard evidence. So instead of a manager making a huge decision based on a gut feeling, they can point to a simulation report and say, look, we ran 100 different scenarios, and the data clearly shows this is the best way to go. And the financial benefit here is just huge. Think about it. Finding out that your brand new factory layout is totally inefficient after you've already built it, that's an incredibly expensive mistake. Simulation lets you make all those mistakes for free in the virtual world so you can perfect the plan before you spend any real money. And finally, it just fundamentally changes how a business prepares for the future. It's all about being proactive instead of reactive. You can actually stress test your system against all kinds of future risks. What happens if a key supplier suddenly goes out of business? What if you get a crazy surge in demand? You can see the breaking points ahead of time and build contingency plans before a crisis ever hits. Really, it's a shift from I think this will work to I know this will work. And it all comes down to what the source material puts so well. By providing a virtual environment to test theories and strategies, Arena empowers businesses to make data-driven decisions. It's really about that move from intuition to proof. So it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? If you had this crystal ball for any process, whether it's your morning commute or a big project at work, what's the one what-if question that you'd want to ask about your world?